Now, Games Workshop don't have the best reputation for writing rule books that have a lot of clarity to them, that can be understood and don't cause arguments or differences of opinion in rule interpretation at the table. And so this always happens. The rule books come out and then nobody can really decide on what the rule book's actually trying to say. You've got the rules as written, straight out as written, which sometimes come across as really unintuitive. And then an errata ends up being published on a downloadable PDF or whatever. And it will say, yeah, actually change such and such listing to this. This is what we actually mean. Change that to that and the other to the other. And very often, yeah, they're trying to do the intuitive thing and the rules as written are not going to be followed anymore. And yeah, okay. And it's one of the... It's a problem that it's like, and we joked about this before, they've only been doing this 30 odd years, you know, cut them some slack. So, I mean, it's kind of almost cliched that this is going to happen. And they really need to play test these books a lot better, I think. Basically, they've got some internal play testing and then they've got specific people that they're play testing. But I think they need to widen that circle. They do. They need to just get them to sign some NDAs, widen that circle, because as soon as players actually touch it, you know, then they will start pulling it apart. Because the players out there are not GW in here. GW will play it as they intended to write it. They wrote these things to work this way. But when you get the players with all the win at all cost types and all these kinds of people that maybe GW don't have internally, these people out here, the fringes, right? Once you get some of those people, I'm not saying they're all on the fringes, right? But once it reaches the fringes, as well as the outer and inner rim, going all Star Warsy on you now, right? Then they will discover just how flippy floppy the writing, the wording is. It's a problem, isn't it? When you're the writer, you always intended it one way and you can kind of start to miss stuff, but that's not good enough, really. I mean, and then they've got these erratas and FAQs and whatever, and what, you're supposed to carry that around with your book? I mean, that sucks. Or what, you're supposed to like cut that out and glue that into your book and start having pages stick together because glue? Or what? Who wants to do that? Nobody wants to do that. You know, get the rules right from the beginning. And yeah, you know, you're going to shift things, you're going to shift points and stuff like that. Why don't they start being accountable and start having like print out stickers or something that you can print out that will exactly replicate the section of the book and go pop, so you can just pop it into your book? How about stuff like that where you can go to a GW store, right, and just get a little print out stickers of the whole thing and it will just, you know, just lay it all out or something like that. Anyway, aside from that, we've got a new one that's just emerged here, right? So someone, as a great example, was talking about it here via the community. So there's a thing here that says for characters, basically there's usually restrictions in building an army. So they try to limit how many things you've got depending on the points. That's usually the intuitive thing, right? So it's a small amount of points. The really, really big things, you can't have too many of them. That's the idea, right? So it's normally like, oh, you if you want one of these big things, then you need to meet a particular points threshold to be able to take it or whatever, right? Or if you take this particular big thing, then you can take these things over here. They do other ones like that. You can take an extra one of these things over here, which are normally rare, but you can take one of these as one of your core, because like with the dwarves with the king, right? You've got the king, then they can take the hammers or whatever, and you've got the thing as core, and the long beards thing, one unit of long beards kind of thing as like a king or a thane or whatever. I can't remember. I'm so new to the dwarves. They've got a thing like that, right? And you can take an extra unit of long beards as a core instead of just a special or something like that, right? Anyway, the way that these restrictions usually work is to kind of create a balance. Fine. So in this example we're looking at here, it says up to 50% of your army's points value may be spent on. This is for Bretonnians, right? 0 to 1 duke. Okay. 0 to 1 baron or prophetess per 1,000 points. Paladins, damsels, and sergeants at arms. Right. So the issue thing here is the middle line. So if we just at my computer screen, right, so up to 50% of your army's points values may be spent on. So someone pointed out here 0 to 1 baron or prophetess per 1,000 points. They said, okay, so if you take a 500 point Bretonnian force, according to the army list, rule, written as worded, right? Rules as written, you can take a duke, but you can't take a baron, right? But that says 0 to 1 baron or prophetess per 1,000 points. Now that's too ambiguous, isn't it? Now, the intuitive response to that, and for me it's clear, it would say that would mean 0 to 1,000 points, surely, because anything else is just silly, isn't it? But he's trying to say, no, you have to meet at 1,000 points to be able to take one of those. But if they meant that, then why say per 1,000 points? You know, it's just awful writing. And then he quoted another thing to me about, well, somebody else quoted another thing to me about number of units. So we look at that rule then, and it says here, in fact, okay, so number of units. Next to the names of some units as they appear in the various army composition lists are numbers, and these require some explanation. So sometimes we see like the 0 to 2 things in the first bullet point. So you can take 0, 1 or 2 of them, right? And in other cases, you might see a 1 plus symbol, meaning you must contain at least that many or more, right? But then it's the third bullet point we're more interested in, right? In some rare cases, you might encounter the term up to X per 1,000 points, with X being a number. For example, up to 3 per 1,000 points, indicating that an army may contain no more than 3 units made up of that type of model for every full 1,000 points of army size as described on page 276. Now then, every type of model for every full 1,000 points. Rule, that's quite right. Absolutely right. Rules as written, it says full 1,000, but it doesn't feel right.